Everybody's favorite part, the annual compulsory trainings. And first up is Tim Wells, reminding you of safe and responsible technology use.
Hey, good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to the people who've been here last year, and welcome to the new staff members. You've heard it many times so far in your 3 days, 4 days that you've been here. This is a great place, and it really is. It really is, and I'm sure you're going to make it even better before. So just a couple of notes before I get into the internet footprint thing. Equipment. If anybody has equipment needs, right after I'm done, you have my permission to come up to 211-8, H211, and get your stuff. All right? If you want. If you reside at the high school, middle school, and Memorial Park, we no longer dial 9. I know I've sent out emails about that. So remember, you dial 8 now to get out. We're trying to eliminate the 911 butt dials, for lack of a better term, which we had a few of them. So remember, at Memorial, high school, and middle school, dial 8 to get an outside line. And if you need your codes changed, please put a trouble ticket in for that. Listen, I know I send a lot of emails out. I've heard from probably most of you about that. I promise you, I'll never send out anything personal. I'll never send out a joke. I'll never send out a cute cat video, because there isn't any. But I do send a lot out, all right? At the very least, look at the subject line, because the things that I send out are mostly security-based or virus-based or something like that. And if you would just, read it, look at it, and adhere to some of it, that'd be much appreciated. But at least look at it. If you have any questions about anything, just give me a shout. So I'm going to be the fastest up here. Your internet footprint, guys. These people have heard me talk about this before. You now represent Rockland Public Schools, okay? And it is an awesome district. What you put out on the internet can be a reflection, not only on you, but a reflection on the community here in Rockland, and specifically, more concise, the district of Rockland Public Schools. So be aware of what you put out there. I can guarantee you that Dr. Cron's not going to creep you, all right? He's not going to look at your stuff. I'm not going to look at your stuff. I don't care what you put out there. I can also guarantee you that there's going to be a competition between Dave and Chris. They're probably going to creep the heck out of you and see what you guys got out there. So, no, they're probably not going to do that. That's all I have to say. Just be aware of what you put out there, guys, because it is a reflection on us, a reflection on you. Have a great year and welcome back.
Okay, so I get to kick off the fun stuff. Civil rights, laws and regulations relative to public education. This is all important. It is all mandated that we go through this, and there are sign-in sheets out in the hallway that you must sign, or else you're going to have to watch a video of all of us doing this again. So we'll go through it as quickly as possible, but it is important, and we do need to cover this material. So civil rights laws and regulations relative to public education. Confidentiality of students' records. FERPA, I love acronyms. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of '74 protects the privacy of students' education records and gives parents certain rights with respect to those records. Individual records are confidential. This extends to giving out individuals' addresses and telephone numbers. What is confidentiality? It's protecting all personally identifiable data. It applies to discussions, verbal and written, legitimate educational sharing, privacy of educational records, emails. To piggyback on Tim, everything we email to each other is a public record. Initials, unidentifiable descriptions, or better yet, pick up the phone. Anti-bullying policy. Policy required by state law and it is on our website. So maybe I don't have to read all the bullets. All members of the school community should be alert to bullying. Staff who witness suspected bullying should make an oral report to the building administration, your assistant or principal. Principals will address bullying in more detail with their school staff in the individual settings. All allegations of bullying will be investigated. Statistics on bullying allegations and instances are part of our data to the state. What is bullying? Bullying is the repeated repeated use by one or more persons of a written, verbal, or electronic expression, or a physical act or gesture, or any combination thereof, directed at a target that causes physical or emotional harm, places the target in reasonable fear of harm, creates a hostile environment at school, infringes on the rights of the target at school, materially and substantially disrupts education. And just before I go back, I thought there was a slide here that differentiated sort of teasing and bullying. When in doubt, go to your principal for help on this, okay? Just pick up the phone or walk down to the office. What is discrimination and harassment? One incident can be sufficient to trigger civil rights concerns. Distinguishing from state law, bullying is repeated. For discrimination or harassment, the target is a member of a protected class. This could be a person with a disability, a gender identification orientation, race or ethnicity, or no specific target is actually necessary. Again, any concerns at all, go to your building principal. Bullying, discrimination, and harassment include, but aren't limited to, nonverbal threats, intimidation, crude gestures, stalking, creeping, stealing or hiding possessions, excluding, isolating, unwelcome touching, spreading rumors or spreading messages of an embarrassing, slanderous, or intimidating nature, repeated or pervasive teasing, tormenting, name-calling, belittling, mocking, put-down, sarcasm, or demeaning humor in both the real and online electronic worlds. So this does apply not just to our interpersonal, our interactions with each other in person, but also what we do online. What is hazing? Hazing refers to any conduct or method of initiation, even if consented to, in any student organization, whether on public, and this is key, or on private property, which willfully or recklessly endangers the physical or mental health of any student or other person, and it will not be tolerated. Such conduct shall include, but is not limited to, whipping, beating, branding, forced calisthenics, exposure to weather, forced consumption of any food, liquor, beverage, drug, or other substance, or any other brutal treatment or forced physical activity which is likely to adversely affect the physical health or safety of any such student or person, or which subjects such student or other person to extreme mental stress, including extended deprivation of sleep or rest or extended isolation. What should you do if you feel you have been a victim of discrimination or harassment, or if you feel someone else has been harassed or discriminated against? Contact your principal or supervisor, and if necessary, call me, all right, or email me. I try to check my email with regularity, and you are better off to ask than not. So please ask. Mandated reporting, Dr. Maniglia. No, I'm sorry, Freya lady. Freya, sorry.
Good morning. Welcome back, and to some of you, welcome to Rockland. The 2022-2023 school year brings new students and a fresh start, and the message continues to be that keeping kids safe is one of the many most important things we do, because it seems like the list just keeps getting longer. Mandated reporting and suicide prevention are incredibly important aspects to the work we do with students. Everyone in this room is a mandated reporter. We are mandated to report suspected abuse or neglect to the Department of Children and Families. Any question about a student's safety or well-being, whether it be a conversation you overheard, an unexplained injury, or a student's report of abuse or neglect needs to be brought to your building principal, guidance counselor, or adjustment counselor. We're watching for signs of self-harm or cutting in older students or any reference to self-harm. These also must always be addressed and reported to building administrators, adjustment, or guidance counselors. We're also watching for changes in behavior, mood, appearance, or a significant drop in performance or participation. These can all be indicators that a child could be at risk to themselves or be a victim of abuse or neglect. Any and all questions of abuse or neglect or concerns about potential self-harm should be brought to your building administrator as soon as you become aware of them. Please don't wait till the end of the day. It's so much easier if we can address the issues, talk to the student, see what's going on when the student's still in the building. So as soon as you learn of anything, even if you're in the middle of a class, maybe just step out, send a quick email, follow up after the class is over. Timing is definitely key. Last academic year, adjustment counselors across the district filed 53 reports of suspected abuse or neglect and made 31 referrals for crisis evaluations. These interventions would not be possible without the information provided by all of you, because you trusted your gut that something was wrong. Remember, it's not our job to investigate suspected abuse or neglect, it's just our job to report it. Thank you guys, have a great year. I don't know if it's Rebecca Kidwell or Linda Maniglia who's up next. Have a good one.
Great. Okay, so this one's a new slide this year. It's so exciting when there are more mandated trainings to add to this section of the PowerPoint. Most of you already know this. We're just formalizing the procedure by sharing it with you today. Our families whose home language is something other than English, the language the parents are most comfortable communicating in is something other than English, it is their civil right for us to communicate with them in the language that they select. For so many of our families, that's Portuguese, but we do have a growing population of families for whom that's Spanish, Cape Verdean Creole, Haitian Creole, Vietnamese, Arabic. We have a small variety growing. So since we have a great number of people in district who can speak Portuguese, Naya Callahan being our number one, Naya, your name's on the slide. In district options for Portuguese, we have a number of bilingual staff members, and I think most of your buildings already have good procedures for that. If there's a new family trying to register, Naya is the resource they should go through. But we're developing an out-of-district option for other languages. So this is not for Portuguese. This is for a language that we don't have someone bilingual in the building already. The company is called Baystate Interpreters, and they have a phone line that we can use where you dial 8 to get an outside line, and then you dial 1-888, whatever, and you put in a code, and they connect you to a call center where someone speaks the language that you're requesting. So this would be a situation where, like, the main office needed to call home and a student's family speaks Arabic and it's an emergency, the nurse needs to call or something. We can call the phone line, and it's very quick. There's a by-the-minute charge and a minimum number of minutes. So we'll be getting the information about how to use this out to the buildings, and it'll reside with your main office. But if you need to communicate with a family who speaks a language other than English or Portuguese, we'll have this option for you as well. And I know many of you have lots of digital options that you rely on as well, and that's great. This is just because sometimes you do need to make a phone call. The last bullet here is just a reminder of best practices for our newcomer students. Everything that's above here about speaking a family's home language is about communication with parents. Our newcomer students, we do communicate with them for many of them, Portuguese as well as English, but we're always working with them in school to develop their English language. Some strategies that can help with that are including in your classroom visual cues, print supports, and technology supports. For our older kids, they're welcome to have a translation app on their phone. For our younger kids, labeling things in your classroom, giving them a small deck of cards of things that they might need, like requesting a bathroom or pencil or something like that. There are lots of visual supports that you can give to kids to help them communicate and strengthen their English language right from day one. Hopefully that's helpful to you, and your building principal will communicate with you about the interpretation phone line when it's all set up. And now it's finally Dr. Maniglia's turn.
Good morning again, and I will keep in mind what Dan Biggins said about when we're speaking, so here goes. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of restraint and seclusion regulations and procedures. Now, Massachusetts mandates that all staff receive this annual training, so we're aware of the changes that went into effect about restraint in January of 2016, and also to ensure that we understand prevention techniques and the regulations governing the application of physical restraint. So 603 CMR, which stands for Code of Massachusetts Regulations 46, applies to the Massachusetts regulations that govern the use of physical restraint. And this is mandated in all publicly funded Massachusetts elementary and secondary schools, to include all public schools, collaboratives, charter schools, virtual schools, residential schools, and private day programs. Now, not only are we mandated to follow the regulations during our school day, but it also includes all school-sponsored events and activities. So the regulations ensure that restraint should only be used in emergency situations when a student's behavior poses as a threat of assault or physical harm to themselves or others, or when the student is not responding to less intrusive strategies and interventions, such as a verbal de-escalation, sensory modulation, or a healthcare agreement. So the next couple of slides will identify and define terminology that's used when we discuss restraint. So physical restraint is defined as direct physical contact that prevents or significantly restricts a student's freedom of movement. It does not include a light touch without force, or, prompting a child to regain their attention, or to guide a student to a safe, quiet place, or a physical escort. There are various types of restraint. There's mechanical restraint, and that is when a device is used to restrict a child's movement. Medication restraint, and the only time that can be used if the medicine is prescribed by a physician. There's seclusion restraints, and again, that's involuntary confinement, where we prevent a student from leaving an area, and a prone restraint, where a student is laying face down on the floor, and we kind of hold them there. But all of these restraints are prohibited. And again, any kind of a physical restraint should only be used as a last resort. Now, another term that's frequently mentioned is physical escort, which is a temporary touching or holding of a student. We usually hold maybe their hand, their wrist, the arm, the shoulder, or kind of guide them, holding onto their back, to move them to a safe, calm location where they can de-escalate and quiet down. Okay, so in addition to this annual general training, specific staff from each building will receive in-depth training and the use of physical restraint. We do this every year to make sure that if restraint is used, that it is used safely and that we use proper administration. There are key reporting requirements. First of all restraints must be reported. You report them to your building administrator. They, in turn, will report restraints to the Department of Education. Now, if you are involved in a restraint, please notify your building administrator as soon as possible, and then follow up with a written report within 1 school working day. The principal, in turn, will then contact parents verbally within 24 hours, and then provide them with a written follow-up of the incident report within 3 school working days. And all of us must be, parents and students must be allowed to comment on any incident report. They can either give us a written report of their perspective, or they can request to come in and speak with us directly. So some new limitations that were added in January of 2016 is that physical restraint cannot be included in a behavior management plan or support plan or a child's individual education plan, or IEP, as a response to any kind of behavior. Our stance here in Rockland is that physical restraint should only be used to ensure the safety of our students and the community of people in our district. Again, it should only be used in emergency situations when we feel that a student is unsafe to themselves or others, or as a last resort, and that we will follow the mandated reporting requirements here in the district. Some additional terminology that is used when we're discussing restraint is seclusion, which again is an involuntary confinement of a student to either a room or an area, and they are physically prevented from leaving that area. On the other hand, timeout is a temporary separation from a learning instructional environment. And it could be not necessarily, going to a room that's labeled timeout. It can be a part of the classroom that they're in, but maybe away from instruction so that they can de-escalate a little. They can go to the principal's office. They can go to a guidance counselor, a psychologist, and the purpose, again, of the timeout is a strategy for them to calm down. So with a timeout, sometimes the student may request the timeout so that they can go to a quiet space and just calm down themselves, or it can be staff initiated. And again, it's not limited to any space that is, has a label of a timeout room. And staff shall be in close proximity of students when they're in a timeout situation, and so that they are being observed all the time. Okay, the emphasis on the added definition of timeout is that it is a behavior support strategy. It's not punitive, and it's an opportunity for our students to calm down in a safe, quiet place. And again, staff is always in close proximity and has the student in their view. So after every restraint, the circumstances should be discussed with the student that was restrained or any other students that might have been in close proximity, or other staff members. And we want to debrief and make sure that we have a conversation with the student on how this could be avoided in a future situation, what kinds of things they could do, and what kind of better choices they could make. So Rockland School District uses CPI, or Crisis Prevention Intervention Training, for the in-depth training, and now we also use safety care. And in each building, your principals will have a list of all personnel that have had the in-depth training. Okay, so in summary, again, we want to make sure that restraint is always just used in emergency situations and as a last resort, and that if possible, we should do a timeout for the purpose of calming a student down. Seclusion is the involuntary confinement, and is when we physically prevent a student from leaving a certain area, and again, that is prohibited. Just remember, there is a team of staff in each of your buildings who will or have received in-depth training on how to conduct a safe, proper restraint if necessary. And once you know these people, you should know how you could contact them if necessary. And finally, nothing in our regulations precludes any teacher, employee, or agent of the school from using reasonable force to protect students or other persons from assault or serious physical harm. So, if you have any other questions about restraint, you can contact me directly, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you. Thank you.